Swift on the tour. The meaty bomb.
What's up? It's your boy 3-2, man. You know what it is. It's Rush Free, episode 2, man. First off, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, man. Taking the time to, you know what I'm saying, actually put effort and attention and awareness into this topic that we dive into. So I know the last episode was self-awareness, you know what I'm saying? And basically what I talked about was my beginning journey and my beginning stages, and realizing that I had a problem, you know what I'm saying? What I was going through wasn't minimal, you know? And realizing that there was a problem that needed to be fixed, I was able to then start to look and search for answers, you know what I'm saying? Gather my resources. And I don't want nobody to think that this was an overnight thing. You know, I dealt with this, you know, for several years. And it was definitely hard in the beginning, but it definitely got harder, you know what I'm saying? As I tried to push against, you know what I'm saying, what was trying to take over. So, like, I talked about how it basically happened, you know, my sophomore year. And by the time I had, you know, left for the end of the semester, my sophomore year, you know, I finished, took all my final exams, went home. You know, I was confused, but I thought that maybe it was my environment. I thought that maybe it was school that had me feeling like that. So I thought coming home was gonna make it better. Again, as I discussed in, you know, the first episode, things got, you know, rough. Things didn't necessarily get easier for me. Again, it took until, you know, my significant other had went off to this service where I started finding a lot of those answers. And I think in large part, what I can contribute to not finding answers sooner was I wasn't looking for them. You know, I basically, by changing my environment, I basically changed my distractions. You know what I'm saying? I made it easier. I almost ran. You know what I'm saying? Like, actually, that's what I'm going to call it. I ran from, you know, the problems that I was facing in school, and thought that, you know, my situation would change just because I changed my environment. But you can't really, you know, change your situation until you start to change you. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't working on me. I wasn't trying to change me. I was just trying to not deal with, you know, the pain that I was dealing with. So whatever I could do to keep busy, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I got, you know, a bunch of jobs. I did a bunch of things. Everything from construction to accounting work, call centers, and I pretty much did it all, man. So, like, whatever I could do to keep me busy, I did it, you know. And what I started to realize was nothing was working. Nothing. So it really didn't start to click for me that I needed to change until, you know, I got that time alone, until I had that freedom to be me, you know what I'm saying, and be alone. And again, that didn't come until my significant other left. So what I want to do now is actually talk about some of those answers and some of those techniques that I actually used to, you know what I'm saying, find the answers that I needed and I wanted. So the first one definitely would be support systems. So I was fortunate enough to have great friends, you know what I'm saying? I've always had great friends, you know what I'm saying? The ones that I did keep around and, you know, keep close to me. Like, I've always been a good friend, and I've always been fortunate enough to have great friends to reciprocate that love. So my girl best friend at the time, I keep her nameless, but she was able to, like, you know what I'm saying, help me, you know, like, in a big way. Like, just talking about it, being able to get it out, you know what I'm saying, being able to talk to somebody else about it instead of internalizing it, because a lot of the times when I internalized it, I came up with my own answers, and they were based off the emotion that I was feeling when I was internalizing, which wasn't always the best, you know what I'm saying, course of action or the best decision, you know what I'm saying. So having somebody else to talk to and kind of like not necessarily guide me, but like assist me in like the decision making process, and not like she was making like big decisions or anything like that, but like she would like just offer advice, you know what I'm saying, just somebody that can either listen or offer you guidance, you know what I'm saying. And that's what she played both of those parts. She offered me guidance and she listened, and it became easier to deal with it. You know, again, some of the stress factors weren't there because my significant other wasn't there anymore, but like of course I still had my daughter, you know what I'm saying. I became not a single father, but I became, you know, a lone father, I would say, or a lone parent while she was away for the service for 8 months. So, you know, I was a sole parent, basically a sole guardian for Angel. And yeah, so it was like I just didn't have that many stress. I didn't have all of them at once, basically. I was cutting them down, so it was definitely easier to deal with them, you know. Right. Having a support system, and then it wasn't just her, you know. I had other friends. A lot of them were girls, and a lot of them did give me great, you know, woman advice, you know, woman perspective. And I feel like that's another thing we don't have enough of, you know. We don't have enough perspective of the opposite sex, you know. So it's kind of, especially young, you know what I'm saying. And I feel like that's where a lot of relationships go crazy. But we'll get into that, you know, another time. Right now, again, the support system definitely helped me out. So all of my friends and family members that I was able to talk to and use their ear and their heart and guidance, you know what I'm saying, that definitely helped. It could not stand alone, and it wouldn't have stood alone, because again, they're outsiders looking in, so they can give you a very I don't know how to like word it, but their view, basically, you know what I'm saying. Depending on what they're feeling and how objective they are, you could be getting some good advice, you could be getting some just good advice, or you could be getting some bad advice. You be getting some horrible advice. So that's one thing to definitely be wary of when you are, you know, confiding in your support system or seeking your support system. But I pretty much use that and the I use the technique of keeping myself busy. So like whatever I can keep myself busy with, you know what I'm saying, it kept my mind off of some of my stresses. So I would, you know, go out, I would throw parties, you know, have game night, you know what I'm saying, we would drink, we would, you know, turn up, basically, kick it. And like, that kept me busy, you know. During the week, when I couldn't do that, I would go to the gym right after work. You know, I'll pick up my daughter, drop off at my mom's house, and I would go to the gym and work out for an hour and a half, maybe 2. And again, that was to fill up some of that time in which I would have had to be at home, internalizing along with my thoughts, you know. I went to the gym with my pops, so like I was able to work with a familiar face, be around somebody who could push me, and him blindly not knowing what I was going through, you know what I'm saying, he was able to help me, you know, just by being there, you know what I'm saying. And again, you don't always have to confide in your support system, you know. Sometimes it's just good to be around healthy energy, you know what I'm saying. Sometimes it's just good to be around people who are exuding positive energy, you know what I'm saying. Because when you're around so much negativity all the time, you have no choice but to be consumed and become that negativity. So it was definitely great that I was able to keep myself busy, although it wasn't efficient as, you know, some of the other techniques I found later on. It definitely helped in the beginning, you know what I'm saying. And I was able to find like what I like. So I actually liked it, the feeling after working out, you know what I'm saying. I actually liked it spending that time with my pops, and I actually liked it, you know, seeing my daughter's face, you know, when she got to kick it with her aunt. I mean, well, with her aunt, her granny, her uncles, you know what I'm saying. So it was pretty cool, you know, their dynamic. So it was really beneficial on both sides. It was mutual. And it was also like, it helped me out because that was the first time I had kept my daughter by myself for an extended period of time. So like, just that added help, from my moms and my uncles was great. So this is still before she gets back. It got to the point where, like, working out became like, just routine. We kind of dwindled down on some of the partying, low key. So like I had a lot of the weekends where I had, more time than I had anticipated to internalize things. So I had to find something else, to keep myself busy. And for the longest, I wasn't sure. But then my girl best friend told me, she's like, you should start writing. And like, it wasn't a far-fetched idea because I've always enjoyed writing in some form. Whether it was writing down lyrics for a rap that I've created or doing a short story, like just a short story. I actually enjoy, writing short stories and writing fictional or non-fictional pieces. I'm not really a poet, a hard poet, I'm not really deep like that. But I do enjoy like poetry and like, its use of expression, And I think any of those writing forms are great outlets for expression. And so like the first form I took, of course, was writing music, I've always been, I would say, musically inclined, and had a great sense, a great ear for music, I would say, especially in the genres of R&B and hip hop. So I just started. I got a notebook, went out and bought 2 notebooks, and I just started writing, I would write little raps every time they came to me, a few bars at a time. And it ended up evolving into short stories, Then it kind of turned into like a mini autobiography. And then what I started realizing was me exploring or writing about the things that was going on in my life was my way of exploring what was going on, but it also gave me a different insight. Because again, in order to write about it, you gotta think about it. In order to think about it, you gotta, have it on your brain and actually recount the situation and the scenes. So I had a lot of time going back. Well, I spent a lot of time going back, once I started writing the short stories, going back through the memories and figuring out how it is that I got to where I was. And like every short autobiography I had, every made up story, that stemmed from like a real experience in my life, odd enough always started at the same point. The same origin never changed. And that origin was kindergarten. No, daycare. So most of like what I attribute to what shaped who I am today happened between the ages where I was in kindergarten through like 5th grade or maybe 8th grade. But like I feel like 8th grade was just a manifestation of everything that had led up to that point. So what I mean by that is, so when I was in daycare, I went to daycare in the city, not too far from where we grew up at. And the daycare supervisor, or whatever you want to call her, she was great. She loved me. Took me in like she was her own, They used to hyphenate my name, and add, her last name at the end when I was there. And like she even called me like one of hers, So I had like a really great relationship with her, She really like looked out for me while I was there as a kid. It was also there, where I first started exploring sexuality. And again, we're talking daycare, so a lot of you guys are going to look up and you're going to be like, what? But again, this is my authentic story. This is real. I had my first kiss in daycare. I grabbed my first girl butt in daycare. I did my first clothes burning in daycare. Truth or Dare got raunchy back then. And yeah, so it was, we were kids. We didn't know exactly what we were doing. We were imitating what we saw either at home, in music videos, on TV, in movies, or wherever else we got it from. You know what I'm saying? We was just imitating there. That's what it was, but the imitation took on different forms as I got older. So fast forward a little bit, I'm out of daycare and I'm in kindergarten. Now kindergarten is literally like maybe 5-6 years old, right? And I've already had my first kiss. I've already clothes burned. I've already kissed and all that, making out and all that good stuff. Not a pro by any means, but having that little experience, right? So now we get to the point where I'm in kindergarten and I start to have some different experiences. We escalated from kissing in the little playhouse, made by little mates or little tykes. I'm pretty sure like all my 90s baby remember this house with the it's brown and had the green roof and the red doors and window panes. And I remember this thing vividly, but like it went from kissing and grabbing booty, clothes burning in there, and then like the supervisor, she had 7 kids that she had adopted. And, it was like 4 girls or whatever, and they were, I don't know how much older they were then. I don't even know how much older they are now, but it had me about 3 years. We would play with them, Again, like I said, the Truth or Dares got raunchy, so like, they the girls, her girls were who they got raunchy with, But yeah, so I go from that, in daycare to now I'm in kindergarten now. Like, of course I'm 6 years old, so I can't ejaculate. But this is the first time that I actually penetrate a female is in 6th grade. 6 years old, kindergarten. And yeah, I experienced my first, introduction into intercourse, I would say. I figure out the other forms of foreplay. And this is all taking place, kindergarten. Like, I'm in kindergarten, so you can only imagine like what they did for my mental, what they did for my sexual maturity, what they did for my sexual understanding at such a young age. So by the time I get to like middle school, like I'm full-fledged carrying out these acts without hesitation. You know what I'm saying? Like wherever I could do it, I could do it. Like I'm we're gonna make it happen. And the thrill of it was what kept it going. So again, with this being the origin story, like this being like pretty much how every story was started out or was set up, I had no choice but to analyze my own sexuality and how it played a part then and still continues to play a part now. And through that analyzation, what I was able to uncover was that while daycare definitely was like the beginning of the fire, it didn't become ablazing until kindergarten, and then like I feel like after that I had hypersexuality. Like I was always curious. As a matter of fact, I remember, I don't know how old I was. I know I was a little kid though, because my granny always talks about me being a baby or a smaller child. But basically we was in a We were in a hotel. You know, my granny had took me out of town. No, we were just in a hotel. I don't know why we were at the hotel, but we were going to Grant's Farm the next day. And we're in this hotel or whatever. And one of my aunts, she had on a dress, but it was like, it wasn't like a full length dress to where like it touched her feet. It maybe to the shins, like maybe like top of her calf or mid calf maybe. And I was really curious, so I wanted to, like, I got down. I remember like getting down on my knees and trying to look up under her dress to see like what was under there. And my granny grabbed me and like she kind of told me, like, she didn't like hit me or, you know, whoop me or anything, but she told me like you don't do that, you know. And like even then, like I could, like, I don't know how old I was. I don't know if this was before daycare or not, but like I could see, like, again, that hypersexuality. Like I've always been curious and always wanted to know. Now, am I saying this is a bad thing? No. I feel like all kids go through curiosity. What I will say is the things that I went through specifically to me exposed me to a different level of thinking and a different realm of thinking, to where before I developed a meaningful relationship with the opposite sex, I was engaged in sexual activities with them. I want you to hold that nugget right there. So before I actually made a meaningful relationship with the woman, I was engaging in sexual relations with them. Keep that. So fast forward, middle school again. Like I said, I'm pretty much like a pro at this point. Like wherever I could find the time and, you know, energy to do it, I'm doing it. You know, and my porn intake at that point was through the roof. So then you get to high school, and we all know high school is just this different beast in itself, you know. So like now we're having competitions on who can get the most and who got the most girls and all that. I had to come back later and see how that culture and competition that we created amongst each other played a part in my life as well. And then how they played a part in my perspective and my interpretation of how women should be viewed. So again, this all came from me writing. You know what I'm saying? This all came from me just trying to express myself and get a better understanding by writing it out. Because I don't know for you guys, but like when I write something down, because not only am I thinking about it as I'm writing it, I'm seeing it as I'm writing it, and then like there's a little voice that I hear in my head as I'm writing it. So I'm getting it more than just like if I say it in my head. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't see it really. I just hear it. You know what I'm saying? I can't really touch it and rearrange it for like I want to. So like writing things down is definitely a helpful tool, and one that I encourage those who, if you enjoy writing, please go pick up a pen and start expressing yourself. You don't never have to, like, you can write letters, you don't have to send them off. You could type up an email, you don't have to send it. You can open up a Google Doc and just type your life away. That's what I started off doing. Then I got the notebooks. Well, no, I got the notebooks first, then I converted over to Google Docs. But I have both, you know what I'm saying? So like all of the notes that's on my Google Drive are in notebooks, you know, just in case technology fails me one day. But basically, like I said, through that expression and expressing my feelings, I was able to get a better grasp on what it was that I was feeling and going through, and I was able to paint the picture more vivid. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just like, maybe I just might be a horn dog, and you know that's probably where my problems come from. No, I got a more detailed analysis on what it was that I was doing to cause, you know, harm to my own progress, and then what it was that I had done that was still causing harm to my progress. So again, the short biographies, the fictional stories, the non-fictional stories, they all had that origin story almost, you know what I'm saying, of I became the person who I am today in large part due to my sexuality. So again, kindergarten pretty much set the stage for it, and then as I got older, it just, you know, the fire just kept getting incensed, and it grew too big, you know. And because I was so late in catching it and seeing it as a problem, it didn't make it impossible. It just made it a steeper uphill climb. So I'm definitely, again, going to encourage you to express yourself. Again, I'm going to encourage you to go out and get you a notebook. Invest in you so you can get your feelings right. So you can get a better understanding on why it is that you act and move and believe the things that you believe. Because in my case, 99% of what I was going through had and could be attributed to decisions that I made early on. You know? So again, don't be afraid to make those investments in yourself, because you are the biggest investment that you're going to make in your lifetime. So once I, kept diving in and kept writing, of course, like, I was able to go into further detail in my writings than I am now, or even at liberty to go into. I was able to see, like, my attitude towards women stemmed from the relationships that I encountered, in my early stages of sexual encounters. I never had to date, the women that I was kissing and grabbing on, Like, there was no expectation of, chivalry or even love, There was no expectations of a relationship, even boyfriend and girlfriend. Like, we were just doing it because we thought, I don't know what we thought. Like, It was something we was curious about and we wanted to try it. Like, I guess that's what we thought. So, but I quickly realized that all of my life, I had pretty much duplicated the relationships that I had early on, which were harmful. They weren't conducive to healthy relationships. And because of that, my outlook in regard towards women, it wasn't great, to say the least. Like, I didn't, value or even consider women the way they should have been considered. They were really just avenues and vessels for my sexual desires, because that's what they had always been, since daycare. Like, it wasn't like not that I didn't ask on occasion, but it was like I wasn't forcing people to do what they were doing with me. A lot of the times, like, it was initiated by them. So, like, I developed this mindset of women being sexual pleasers, almost, like, they were, I kind of, in the most ignorant way, had this notion that women were put on earth to sexually please men, and that was pretty much it. Like, you didn't really have to build a real relationship with them. They was gonna like you regardless, and that was that. And for most of my life, that stood true, and I carried that belief for most of my life. And it wasn't until, again, I started writing and expressing myself and diving deeper and trying to figure out certain answers that I came across these facts. Like, it was because of what I did early on that I didn't respect women the way they should have been respected. It was because of the way I was moving early on that my kid, wasn't necessarily connecting with me the way I wanted to. So it was a lot of things that played factors into it, and, like, as I kept diving and going further past the surface, the answers presented themselves, So go get you a notebook. If you don't got a notebook, or you don't want to go spend that 10 cents or 50 cents on a notebook, you got a computer, I'm sure. And if you don't got a computer, you spend all day texting on your phone anyway. So just pull up a notepad on your phone and just start expressing yourself. Start really diving into what molded you into the person you are today. Because I would have never been able to change from this misogynistic player role or figure that I occupied for most of my childhood and some of my adulthood if I hadn't looked past the exterior, you know what I'm saying? If I didn't look past just the basics, if I didn't look past the fact that, you know, I wasn't who I made up in my head. Because in my head, I was telling myself, like, what I was doing wasn't wrong, you know what I'm saying? And especially if I was honest with them and upfront and letting them know, like, you're not the only one. Or, you know, even if I didn't let them know and string them along and got away with it, like, that way of life just wasn't right, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of things could have definitely went wrong, but I saw it, you know, I caught it when I caught it. And I was able to make those changes. I was able to, you know what I'm saying, change the course of direction in which I was traveling to benefit not only just me, but everybody. Another resource I use, I know I was kind of long-winded on writing, but that plays such an integral part. Actually, since like I went and got that notebook in 2017, so we're in 2020. So almost 3 years now, and I could say I probably got maybe 4 full notebooks full of writings, 4 full ones. Now they're not full of like short stories and autobiography. Some of those are notes and things of that nature, but I have 4 full books, you know what I'm saying, from writing and expression. Well, expressing myself. So there's definitely an outlet, but it also, you know what I'm saying, can be very beneficial. You know what I'm saying? Once you start to see, you know, the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, or the way that you're moving and living. So, like, I definitely appreciate writing for being a resource that I use. Another resource after that was, I got the writing. I would say basically you could kind of chalk it up to me trying to be busy again, but I started pursuing my dreams. You know what I'm saying? I started, you know, trying to bring into fruition the things that I had deep passion and desires about. So I'm gonna rephrase that. I wasn't keeping busy. I was actually trying to pursue the dreams in which I felt most passionate about at that time. Again, in the last episode, I talked about how I came home, you know, my sophomore year. I played football from 8 all the way up until my sophomore year in college. And football, I had NFL aspirations, as all kids do. I played JFL with Matthew Dickey. I bounced around early on. I ended my career with Matthew Dickey. I started out with Florissant Raiders. I was with U City Lions for a while, and then I stayed with Matthew Dickey Bulldogs, where I, you know, finished up my JFL career. Go Bulldogs, Bulldog for life. You know what it is. Them type of vibes. But after that, I went to St. Louis University High. And I played football there all 4 years. You know, my freshman year, they moved me up to varsity at the end of the season. And I finished out, you know, the rest of my football career playing varsity. From there, I went and played D3 football at Millikan University. My freshman year, by the end of the year, I ended up starting. And then sophomore year, I became a third down back. My little bro, George, you know what I'm saying, he was elusive, kind of like the situation we had with Drew at SLU, you know what I'm saying. I kind of became the big back, the power back, and, you know, we had the elusive back. So it was Drew at SLU, shot him out at Bowling Green State right now doing his thing, you know what I'm saying. That boy's a savage. And then George, you know what I'm saying, in college, you know. Shout out my boy George, you know what I'm saying, doing this thing too. Should be graduating this year actually, so good luck with that, bro. But yeah, so I started chasing my dream because I had gave that up my sophomore year. I didn't finish my sophomore season due to the depression and everything that was going on. My daughter was due to be born that December. in 2016. I had the worst academic year, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had fell behind early and just couldn't get over the hump. So just everything was then, like, I wasn't having a season that I wanted. Like, I wanted to start, but, you know, they made me a third down back, so they kind of didn't sit right with me. I was feeling a way about that. But then injuries, you know, like, I've always dealt with injuries, but, like, it seemed like the injuries I was getting now, they kept me out longer and longer. Like, in JFL, I played through every injury I ever had. Like, I think the one time I didn't play is because I actually had to sit out per doctor's orders because my wrist was broke. And even then, like, I didn't wait the whole 6 to 8 months. I was like, I think I went like, no, 6 to 8 weeks. I think I went like probably 2 weeks. And I ended up throwing a club over the cast and played football like that, you know what I'm saying? Clubbed up. Only could use my left hand. So I played through pretty much every injury I had in JFL. Once I got to high school, of course, like, I started to think about my body and trying to preserve it. So, like, I didn't play through as many injuries, but of course you get banged and bruised up all the time. Like, you limp, you know, whatever. But, like, I had a high ankle sprain my sophomore year. So it was like 4 to 6 weeks. My MCL and LCL, messed it up my junior year. And I just had, like, my senior year was probably my healthiest year. I ain't miss a game my senior year. So that was my healthiest year. I did have some banging up, but it was my senior year, so we had a lot to fight for. So I wasn't really trying to miss nothing. I know for sure I broke my thumb, and, like, I had some groin issues, but I played through it all. But then when I got to college, my first year towards the end, that groin issue, like, it persisted, but it got worse. And I got my first concussion as well my freshman year, so that set me out 4 weeks. So I was splitting time before I got the concussion. Then I ended up getting the concussion. I came back, worked hard, and then ended up winning the starting position. And yeah, but that groin it messed with me. And in my sophomore year, I started off the year, I broke my hand, my right hand at that. I'm running back, so you can kind of see, like, that kind of made it hard for me. But I actually played the very next game with the broke hand. I just, you know, taped it up, had a little splint on it or whatever. Didn't carry the ball in my right hand at all that game. No fumbles, so good thing. But side note. But yeah, so the injuries just started to get to me, man. I broke my finger, my hand. Then I had a bad knee bruise, and then I had tore a nerve in my shoulder. So, like, I had to wait 4 weeks for my hand, and then, like, 2 games later, I messed up my shoulder. And so, like, we only played 10 games, so, you know, like, I was looking to be out for the rest of the season, on top of, you know, falling behind in classes, on top of dealing with depression, on top of, you know, the anxiety of, I'm in college, no job prospect, I'm just a sophomore, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what I'm going to do when I get home, you know what I'm saying? I got a baby on the way, like, I'm thinking about formula, diapers, Pampers, and all this stuff. Like, I'm anxious, I don't know, like, what I'm going to do. And it took a hold, you know what I'm saying? It definitely took a toll on me. I definitely, you know, was going through some dark things, and it overpowered me. And I remember walking into my coach's office, and I had before I left my apartments, I cried because I was literally finna go make the hardest decision. And then even, like, making the decision, I knew how many people I was letting down, and I think that was more so of why I cried. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people had put a lot into me, you know, playing football. A lot of people spent a lot of times, a lot of weekends, a lot of weekdays, you know, in the parks with me, you know, whether it was practices or games. And I wanted to make it to the NFL for them, you know what I'm saying? So, like, me walking to my coach's office and telling him, like, where I'm at right now, I'm no good for the team. You know what I'm saying? Where I'm at right now, I'm no good for nobody. You know, and like I basically told him was like, I want your permission to, you know, basically let go of the commitment in which, you know, I said I was gonna give you at the beginning of the season, so that I could focus on finishing out school the right way. And he understood the academics of it. He also knew about, you know, the child and all of my child and all that. So like, he was a very understanding coach. Shout out to Coach Greedy. He was definitely understanding, man. He definitely, you know, looked at me as a man, and he didn't down me or, you know, call me out my name or even look at me funny, you know. And even after, you know, I left the team, like, they were there. They checked up on me and stuff. So, like, I respect him and his coaching staff for that. My love is always there for them. For that, you know what I'm saying, and how he handled that situation. So, yeah, I went over there. I told him, you know what I'm saying, I was leaving the team or whatever. And, like, that transition, like, I literally dropped 10 years, you know what I'm saying? I literally let go of 10 years of my life, and you can only imagine how empty I felt letting such a big part of me go, you know. And initially, like, it only made my depression worse because I didn't have football practice. I didn't have my football brothers to be around, you know what I'm saying. That was great energy being around, you know what I'm saying. Just out there, you sweating, you working hard together, like, you know what I'm saying, y'all going through a common struggle, you know what I'm saying. And whether we got into it or not, like, every time I've ever played on, I always looked at all of those guys as my brothers, you know what I'm saying. So, like, almost as if it was a frat, that's how I took it and treated it, you know. So when I lost football, I lost my brothers, I lost my family, you know what I'm saying, my outside family, because they understood me. You got to think, like, Monday through Friday, you know, from 3 to 6 in college, we was together, you know what I'm saying. And then 8 to 9 or 8 to 10 in study hall, we was together. 6 a.m. we got workout. So, you know, I spend upwards of 10 hours with these dudes, you know what I'm saying. I'm easily spending more than 40 a week with them, you know what I'm saying. So it's like, they really became a part of me. So when I let them go, or when I let that aspect of my life go, you know what I'm saying, while I was definitely able to maintain the relationships, you know what I'm saying, like, even now, like, some of those guys still call me brother. We still chop it up and talk, you know what I'm saying. It's more, some of them on a more regular basis than others, but it still wasn't the same because I wasn't out there, you know what I'm saying. We wasn't warming up together. We wasn't taking off our helmets, breaking it down, none of that, you know what I'm saying. So it's like, I just missed that aspect of it. And it made me definitely sink more, you know what I'm saying, run more. It made me, you know, not want to deal with my problems even more. And so I skated through, you know what I'm saying. I barely make it through sophomore year, second semester. I did have my daughter that first semester, so that did bring a lot of joy. It's probably one of the proudest moments, you know, still to this day. Like, man, that feeling was just unbelievable, bro. Cutting that umbilical cord, you know, just seeing what I create, you know, holding something that I created, you know, is a different feel, and it still is a different feel. So, I mean, that was definitely helpful, but it didn't eradicate the problem, you know what I'm saying. It just, not to downplay it, but it you know, it helped. It definitely helped, but it wasn't the end all be all for me. One thing I did want to bring light to was I lost my train of thought, but I'm just gonna jump back into it. So yeah, just losing that big part of me, you know what I'm saying, was difficult, you know. So when I get home, you know, I'm thinking like I'm changing my environment. I won't be on campus with my brothers, so like I won't have those immediate, you know what I'm saying, reminders that, you know, I played football, you know. Because when you wake up and you live in an apartment with all football players and they waking up at 6 a.m., you hearing the door close, they got practices, you hear them come in after practices, you hear them leaving off for study hall, you hear them getting ready for the games, and you used to be part of that, and all of a sudden you're not a part of it no more, it's difficult.
DJ Swift on the Meaty Mob.
3, 2,